Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Spotify. However you listen to me, I appreciate it. We're going to be talking about Ric Flair, AEW NXT, WWE Fastlane, New Japan. We're going to be talking about everything that happened in this week of wrestling, or everything in this week of wrestling that I happened to watch. But before that, I wanted to talk to you guys about this relay race I did, 20 miles, accumulatively. Personally, I did 20 miles, but the whole thing was 200 miles through Kentucky. I did the Bourbon Chase Ragnar relay race. It was a wild time. 2 hours of sleep, 20 miles, and that was only my leg. And then I jumped in an Uber from Lexington to Louisville, flew from Louisville to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Greensboro to make it to a run club that I host on Sunday mornings. I guess dedication beats intelligence, and that is what I did with my weekend. But I had a great time. So I caught up with my pro wrestling on Monday. I watched New Japan. I watched WWE Fastlane on Monday. I also watched Monday Night Raw Tuesday morning. And then I watched AEW and NXT at the same damn time today. That was a lot of fun. It was a headache. And I broke it down. I wanted to find out what show was better. Was it AEW? Was it NXT? So I broke it down to the first 45 minutes. Whoever won the first 45 minutes got a point. The second 45 minutes. Whoever won the second 45 minutes got a point. And then the last 30 minutes, including the overrun, whoever won that, whoever got the most entertaining show, would get 2 points, 2-1. It's a 2 out of 3 falls match here. We're going to get to that. That's going to be the main event of the show. But first, we got to talk a little bit about news. Ric Flair says he's got one more match in him. I'm going to say he doesn't. He didn't the last time he said he had a match in him, and he probably didn't 5 years prior to him saying he had that match in him. And now we're going to be a year or two removed from that initial debacle where he literally passed out from dehydration, I think like twice in the match, had to be revived by Andrade. Ridiculous shit. It kind of got to the point where it was a little sad. It got to the point where the spectacle kind of outweighed the sadness, but there's going to be a point where the sadness is what you notice, and I think it might get that way with another match. I know that he's coming off of this Kill Tony appearance where he didn't want to bully people on a show that's the fun of it. I'm not trying to be rude here. Everyone involved, even the people getting bullied, know why they're up on stage. And I guess he didn't know about that, and it got kind of awkward. And they started kind of maybe roasting him a little bit, which was kind of rough. So maybe he's firing back a little bit at that. But I think this match is a bad thing if it comes to be. Another thing I thought was a bad thing because it looks like they might be done with AEW is there's a new AEW Tag Team Champion with Ricky Starks and Big Bill. FTR dropping the title super quick on Collision. I think FTR was like the best part of Collision ever since Punk left, and probably when Punk was there. And them along with like the Bullet Club and everything like that. So for this to happen abruptly after the whole gun incident and maybe rumors that their contract is running out, and maybe the fact that they were like heavily aligned with Punk, and Punk is pretty gone from the company at this point, it all kind of makes a perfect storm for maybe FTR is gone from AEW. I hope not, but that's what it looks like. Let's jump into some WWE news. WWE Fastlane. WWE has been on a roll with these PLEs. A cold open from Pat McAfee, and then later on down the show, Pat McAfee shows up in his hometown despite being in like like the Oklahoma versus Texas game earlier that day. I mean, so he's flying around America. Xavier Woods bringing everyone pizza. What a nice guy. Jade Cargill showing up, looking like a sexy Silver Surfer alien celebrity type wrestler, shaking hands with Triple H. LA Knight sliding in a Slim Jim sports car. The show just had a fun vibe throughout. WWE shows just kind of feel cool right now. The PLEs feel cool. Feel like a spectacle, like something's happening when you're watching them. And don't get me wrong, like New Japan is a great product, AEW great product, but I do feel like I'm watching something niche where these big PLE events from WWE, I do feel like I'm watching something like the equivalent of like an NFL game where like millions and millions of people are watching, which is, that is the case. Going into the matches, Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Judgment Day. Uso is over. Uso is pretty over here. People don't react to the near falls in WWE like they do in AEW, which is something that I always have to get used to. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm jumping at the edge of my seat when Damian Priest gets a 2 count. And then you just don't hear anything. It's like crickets from the arena. So that's a little interesting thing to take note of between the two fan bases. Mommy and Dom show up along with JD McDonough. To no avail, though. Cody and Jay win the tag team titles. Then you get the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley versus the LWO. 2-on-3 attack. LWO is a man down until Carlito Cool reveals to be the partner. Shows up. Second biggest pop of his career. Only second to the pop he got earlier this year in Puerto Rico. Coming to the aid of his fellow Latinos. Great story here. Now that he's done this twice, let's have him appear more and more. Why not just have him kind of be a fixture on SmackDown with all the rest of these guys? He hits the backstabber 1, 2, 3, gets the victory. Fun match. Io Sky versus Asuka versus Charlotte. Probably the best match on the show. Second time in a row that the ladies have stolen the show on these WWE PLEs. Charlotte gets misted right away. Cool Tower of Doom spot. Meteor breaks up the figure 4. Bayley shows up to distract the ref. Io hits a moonsault to break up the figure 8. 1, 2, 3. Champ retains. You gotta love it. And then you got Cena and LA Knight versus Jimmy and Solo. LA Knight was just as over as Cena, which is very interesting to watch, and pretty undeniable. Knight gets the hot tag. It was bittersweet watching Cena and Solo in there. Made me think of Umaga. Kind of hit me in the feels when I saw those two guys going at it. 5-knuckle shuffle, BFT 1, 2, 3. The good guys get the victory. And then we go into the main event. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Judgment Day stopped Damian Priest from cashing in after his frustration of losing the tag titles. This is a last man standing match, by the way. Trash cans, chairs, nunchucks all come into play early. Nakamura goes through a table, battles through the crowd, and where Seth Rollins falls on this lame-ass crash pad. They got to stop doing these crash pad spots. If you're going to have to use a crash pad, which I get, you don't want someone to get hurt, just do something else. Do another trick. Have something else to do during the match other than a crash pad spot. It completely takes me out of the match. And this particular crash pad spot was not very high. It felt like 7-8 feet. Put a table there or something. Back to the ringside area. Double knee through a table. Rollins beats the count. Chair City. All these chair shots to the back. Rollins beats the count. They battle up the ladder. Rollins gets misted. Rollins still beats a 10 count. Super Rollins ends up dropping a Falcon Arrow through a bunch of tables on the other side of the arena to beat Shinsuke Nakamura. Held him down for 10 seconds and retains his championship. This match was good. I like the women's three-way match a little better. The crash pad spot took me out of it. I know I'm being nitpicky here, but I do like this match. The Rollins title reign is good. I think they've learned a lot from the Roman Reigns title reign and realized that long title reigns are good. You can pass around these mid-card titles. The U.S. Championship can change every week on SmackDown. I don't think it really matters. But these World Championships, like NXT World titles or SmackDown, Raw, what have you, it needs to stay on the champion for a long time to do what it's supposed to do, solidify them as the top guy or top woman in the show or brand at that moment. Speaking of brands, we're going to be jumping over to WWE Raw just for a little bit here. I just want to give some thoughts because it was like a little bit of a fallout from the show that we just talked about, Fastlane, and looks like they're going to give Drew a title shot against Rollins next at Crown Jewel. Drew wants him at 100%, but Priest doesn't give a fuck. Priest jumps him from behind. Drew doesn't do anything, but he does stop the cash in. Rollins calls bullshit on this, like, why didn't you come to my aid if you want me at 100%? He's like, I'm minding my own business, and my business is to have you with the title since I have a shot at you at Crown Jewel, which is pretty interesting here. Kind of a nice take on it. Priest pissed, of course, that Drew ruined his cash-in opportunity. So he put JD McDonough in a match against Drew, and Drew makes short work of JD McDonough, even after Dominic Mysterio gets involved. You have Jay and Cody face-to-face with Sami and KO. The former champs meet the current champs. Sami's happy for him. Kevin Owens wants a title match. You have a bunch of good matches, too, on Raw. Raw was good. Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed versus Ricochet. That was great. Ibar versus Kofi. That was great. Xia Li wants to face Becky Lynch for the NXT Championship. That was good. So tons of good shit's happened on Raw. I feel like all companies are firing on all cylinders. We had AEW, which we're going to get at. We just talked about WWE, and I'm going to go into New Japan. New Japan Dominion, or I don't think it was Dominion. Now I'm blanking on the name, but they had a big show. I skipped a lot of the multi-man tag matches, and New Japan has a lot of these, and I just wanted to get to the meat of the show, like Tonga Loa beating Chase Owens. No, I'm just kidding. I can't believe these guys have been in New Japan for as long as they've been. I respect it. I respect their hustle, but I'm just baffled from the company standpoint to keep these guys around. IWGP Junior Tag titles, the War Dogs, Bullet Club, Drilla Maloney, and Clark Connors go up against Kushida and Kevin Knight. Man, Kushida's stock has dropped since signing with the WWE. I mean, he felt like he was a guy that was going to cross over from the juniors into the heavyweight division in New Japan. Then he signed with NXT randomly, never really got going in NXT or in 205 Live at the time or anything like that. Eventually his contract ran out. He was in Impact for a while. He still kind of is in Impact sometimes. And now he does this Junior Tag Championship thing with Kevin Knight in New Japan, which kind of feels like what he was doing like a few years before leaving New Japan. So it feels like he kind of, when he came back, he dropped down a few pegs. His partner Kevin Knight, though, very athletic, trained by Buddy Wayne before getting trained in the LA dojo by Shibata. So, he's got a pedigree to him. He's got an athletic build and can jump really fucking high. I would love to see this guy in AEW. I think he would kill it. This new fresh coat of paint to a Bullet Club is pretty good as well. These, Maloney and Connors. Good job keeping Bullet Club relevant, which is kind of crazy to think about because this faction has crossed the 10-year mark, and they still can, you can find influence with this faction in every company, more or less. And with, the iterations, go, intricately, like Impact has ABC, and then AEW has, Bullet Club Gold. WWE has the Club, and has, Finn Balor kind of, still doing mannerisms from time to time. But, so New Japan kind of started this faction, and they're still keeping it fresh, keeping it relevant with these new up-and-coming young talent. You get another multi-man tag match put after the junior tag match. I guess that's what, they do on these big shows. Then we have the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Championship. LP and Hikuleo versus Coughlin and Gabe Kidd. Speaking of the fresh coat of paint on Bullet Club, Coughlin and Gabe Kidd, great team. Coughlin is great. LP hits a picture-perfect lion salt to a 1 count because Coughlin just stands up, like deadlifting his ass, slamming him down. That was awesome. But LP and Hikuleo do win the tag team championships. We have new tag champs on this show. I like this team of LP and Hikuleo. You got the big guy, little guy dynamic, which is something you don't see a lot in New Japan. So I love it. And with this, weight division thing, I hope that Coughlin and Gabe Kidd can kind of stay in the heavyweight division but leave the strong titles behind and go for the IWGP tag titles now. There was another multi-man tag match, but it wasn't just any multi-man tag match. It was for the 6-man tag championship. Tanahashi, Okada, and Ishii versus Impact Wrestling stars Josh Alexander and the Motor City Machine Guns. Solid match here, but the story is that Tanahashi pinned Impact champion Alex Shelley. I hope this sets up for a singles match between the two. If not, this made Impact look really weak. It was cool to see Alexander and Ishii tear it up. I want to see more of that. David Finlay, second-generation superstar versus Tama Tonga, second-generation superstar. This match had a slow and methodical pace that I did not like, did not hook me after the star power and fast-paced nature of the 6-man tag match. Going into this match, kind of fell short a little bit. The new leader of the Bullet Club took an L. Tama Tonga is the new Never Openweight champion. And then we had the IWGP Junior Championship match. Hiromu versus Yo versus Impact star Mike Bailey. Cool to see Mike Bailey. Hiromu gets the win, and he is head and shoulders more over than any other wrestler in this division at this point. Maybe they could do something where he goes to MLW or something with their new partnership with MLW and CMLL in New Japan, because you kind of want to freshen up this division, but you don't want to have the main star look weak. His size is something that kind of hurts him going up to the heavyweights, I feel like, unlike when you saw things like Will Ospreay and Shingo go up. This Hiromu's a lot smaller in nature, so I do feel like the IWGP Junior Championship is where he needs to be, his home, but maybe his home away from home can be with some of these partners that they've made these current deals with to just freshen up the division. With that being said, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here because we had a returning Bone Soldier, Taiji Ishimori, who was injured by Hiromu a few months ago, comes back and attacks Ishimori. That's going to be a banger. And then we go into the main event. The IWGP World title on the line, Sonata versus Evil. At first, I was not excited about this match because it was going to be that style match that we see a lot from Evil that I don't really like in my New Japan title matches, which is a lot of plunder, a lot of bullshit. But somewhere in the middle of it, I just started enjoying it for what it was, and it hooked me. Made me kind of think I was being a bit pretentious about this whole wrestling thing, which, internet fans can be at times. This match was overbooked as hell, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. I am not a fan of either one of these guys, really, so I don't think it's not like they ruined their match for me. Like, if this was an Okada match that played out like this, they would, that Okada match would be ruined for me. But since I didn't really like either one of these guys, an overbooked match is fine. So it worked. They start, kind of doing the Evil spots where, the Timeskeeper table flips over. And then Sonata locks in the Paradise Lock, the worst move in pro wrestling. Then Evil tries to run away with the title. Very American wrestling of them. And gets stopped by Sonata's faction. Just 5 guys, including Yuya Uemura, off of his excursion from Impact Wrestling to New Japan. Brings in Evil, throws him in the ring. And then you just kind of had a lot of faction warfare, a lot of interferences from both sides. Like, there was 10 guys out there, a lot of ref bumps, including 2 ref bumps. So they go and they grab Red Shoes, a guy who gets bullied by Evil and House of Torture often. They throw in Red Shoes. Red Shoes acts like he's about to give the pin, but then gives the double bird to Evil, walks up to Dick Togo, gives the double bird to Evil's manager, Dick Togo. Huge pop here. Champ retains, but the story is after the match, we get our Tokyo Dome main event. The current champion Sonata, the leader of Just Five Guys faction, who left Los Ingobernables faction to join Just Five Guys and then win the World Championship, is now facing the leader of Los Ingobernables, his former leader, New Japan legend Naito. This is huge. The story is great. Hope I explained it well. The story has honestly been building since I've been watching New Japan, like way back in like 2015 when Sonata came to New Japan and joined Los Ingobernables. This is great. I love this. I can't wait for this match. Even though Sonata's not my cup of tea, typically the story and the fact that Naito is involved really, really helps. I would say that New Japan has had a rough few years with being poached by AEW, and then of course the pandemic happened. But a whole new generation of talent making their way to the promotion one way or another, and then finding their footing in the last few months and last 2023 and forward. So I feel like this is some good shit happening here in New Japan. It's a shame not too many people are watching it, but what can you do there? But let's jump into the story of the week. NXT versus AEW. So there's baseball, I assume, on TBS on Wednesday. So AEW got bumped to Tuesday. The problem with that is, or the interesting part about that is, NXT is on Tuesday. So we have an old-fashioned head-to-head showcase of wrestling here. NXT versus AEW, just like the Wednesday Night Wars. But unlike the Wednesday Night Wars, is one of the shows is moving nights. And also, unlike the Wednesday Night Wars, is they packed this show, NXT, I'm speaking of when I say they, WWE packed this show with stars to solidify their dominance over AEW. So with one show moving time slots, moving nights, and there's a lot of people that aren't on Twitter, aren't on Reddit, that tune in and watch TBS every Wednesday, and then that's how they get their wrestling. They're gonna miss it this week. They are. And then NXT packs it with Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, John Cena, the fucking Undertaker, Asuka, all these big time stars. So I broke it down with the first 45 minutes, who won the show as far as my entertainment. The second 45 minutes, who won the show as far as my entertainment, and then the last 30 minutes. So I realized that it would take me too long to kind of break down what was happening, but I mean, Christian Cage started off AEW Dynamite this week, which was interesting because I think back in 2011 when TNA went up against Raw, they started with Christian Cage as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's a similar thing that happened. And if you were to watch NXT, which I was watching both at the same time, you saw that NXT started out with Cody Rhodes. And as Cody Rhodes is talking, he's saying that he's the guest GM and all these things like that. Bryan Danielson is coming out on my television to wrestle Swerve. So that's what I was hooked on. I thought that was pretty cool. I listened to the Cody promo. He mentions that there's going to be a few tournaments. Dragunov comes out. Dominic comes out. They get a match complete with LA Knight, of all people, being the special guest referee, which was cool. Very formulaic. They lay out what you could be excited for on the WB show at the top. It happens for decades. But you had kind of a bit of a chain wrestling on the other channel, Danielson and Swerve, and turned into like a little bitch slap battle. Swerve in control, 450. Danielson gets his knees up, and Danielson starts kicking his head in, believe it or not. But it all boils down to more or less Prince Nana is going to get involved, but Hangman Page stops him And because Hangman Page, got hit with the crown a few weeks ago at the pay-per-view, so he didn't want to see another guy go down like that. Hangman helps Danielson hit the Psycho knee, 1, 2, 3. Then we get a Joe promo, which is great. I love this suited up, high-profile monster of a man of Samoa Joe here. And then we have Jericho versus Hobbs. Codebreaker 1, 2, no. Hobbs in control. Lion Tamer. Hobbs kicks out. And Hobbs gets the fucking victory here. I would say that right then and there, a great match, a great promo segment, and then Hobbs, a guy that you've been trying to put the rocket on for a while, the stop-start push hasn't helped him, but this full-on joining the Don Callis family and then beating Jericho definitely helps him and definitely piques my interest more than Asuka and Roxanne Perez, even though it was kind of interesting to see this one. Asuka gets the victory. Shotzi Blackheart attacks Kiana James. I don't know why. Paul Heyman shows up. They're doing their best here, but they also start a very fun match with the Brutes versus Malice, NXT UK. But come on, you're going to give me NXT UK plunder match over Hobbs and Jericho? No way. So right away, I'm kind of giving the nod to AEW in the first 45 minutes. Roderick Strong Cole segment kind of brought me out of it. I mean, the idea of Cole mowing his grass with a hurt ankle is kind of funny, but this Brawling Brutes match was kind of funny as well. So that made me want to say NXT at that moment. But then you had Cassidy and Phoenix coming out, so you had what AEW does best, which is a light heavyweight fast-paced lucha style match versus what NXT and WWE does best, which is hyping up a match with a video package with the NXT women's title match with Becky Lynch and Layla Valkyrie or something like this. I don't watch NXT, guys. I'm sorry for butchering these names. So that was interesting there. That held me. I hope I'm making sense here. But I would have to say what gave the edge to the first 45 minutes would have to be Orange Cassidy winning his title. So we had a title change, the third best match on the show, or the third great match on the show, versus a plunder match, and Asuka, a match that you knew Asuka was going to win. So you gave the first 45 minutes to AEW with NXT setting up a lot of cool shit to happen later on, including John Cena coming out, which was fucking crazy. He hasn't been in the Performance Center since WrestleMania 36, I think. Braun Breaker shows up, and Cena just pretty much, runs him down. But also, the NXT crowd liked Cena, didn't like Braun Breaker. They did the Cena treatment to Braun Breaker, which is foreshadowing that Braun Breaker is going to be hella over in a few decades if you pay attention. They booed the shit out of Cena. They booed the shit out of Roman Reigns. They're booing the shit out of Braun Breaker right now. If he gets called up, they're going to love him. They're going to remember when they booed him. It's going to bring him back to a simpler time, just like how we used to boo John Cena, now we love him. You also had, some more GM Cody segments. You had Baron Corbin, and then you had LA Knight coming out. On the other network, though, Tony Storm cutting these crazy good promos. I'll listen to a John Cena promo all day, but I will legitimately watch Tony Storm all day. And when they went to picture in a picture, they had her silent film, which was kind of funny. And then we went to Wardlow versus Matt Sydal match. Powerbomb Symphony, Sydal is dead. Hangman Page versus Jay White. So legitimate, in my eyes, pay-per-view main event up against, I would say, a legitimate mid-card pay-per-view match with Dominic Mysterio and Ilya Dragunov. So this was the peak of the show here. Great match from Jay White and Hangman, but I would say the story of the match was after the match when MJF comes out, and MJF on the mic is crazy good. The only person I think in like 2021 and 2022 who is as good as MJF on the mic, I mean, yeah, I guess Miz, but I would say Jay White is up there. His promos that he was cutting in these like press conference like settings in New Japan isn't talked about enough. And you had a promo battle with Jay White and MJF. So right there, I think that's like probably the best promo battle you can have in the business right now. Where I feel like the NXT show, you know, they kind of had a good little thing going on where, you know, Judgment Day tried to run out. LA Knight stopped them. Trick Williams kind of caught Mommy. Mommy didn't look like... She looked like she might have enjoyed being in the arms of Trick Williams, and then kind of caught herself and snuck out of that. LA Knight, though, counts the pin 1, 2, 3. Dragunov retains his title. But at that point, MJF is cutting this crazy good promo on the other company. I don't give a shit what's going on with Baron Corbin and Dijak and all this shit that was happening on the other show. And then they have like Heyman come out. They have Jade show up, shake hands with HBK and everything. I still don't give a shit because of how good this promo was and promo battle with MJF and Jay White. I know it's silly. I know that they kind of hinted at some things that would be in poor taste, but it is pro wrestling, and I do believe that Juice Robinson did use the roll of quarters prior to being infused with MJF, and I do think that the whole thing got MJF's approval altogether in the long run anyway. So I do have to give the second 45 minutes to AEW as well. But then we go into the main event, the last 30 minutes, with a little bit of run over. And we have Hikaru Shida and Saraya versus this, first round matchup with these NXT women. Lola Vice wins the first round matchup, and Hikaru Shida wins the AEW Women's Match World Title, which seems kind of random. I would have kept it on Saraya, especially if Toni Storm is like the most over. You have Saraya versus Toni Storm. You know, you have this, the friendship gone awry kind of thing here. But that's personally what I would have done. So I was kind of thrown off by this whole changing of the titles here. But on the other channel, they were hyping up Halloween Havoc, and there was a sick Brian Pillman Jr. vignette here. They said that he's got a new name, and why would all on the internet for days? Why would you change his name? Why would you change his name? You found out why they would change his name because he didn't want to go by Brian Pillman. He's no junior. He wanted to go by his actual father figure. I guess I forget the guy's name, but he's going by a name that pays homage to the guy who raised him, which is a very interesting take on it. We all know that his dad is actually Brian Pillman. You can see it on him. You can watch him how he wrestles, but he's been Brian Pillman in MLW and AEW. He's been Brian Pillman Jr. for a long time. If you want to spice him up, if you want to kind of tune him up just like you tuned up Brian Pillman in the mid-90s to kind of have him be iconic, you tune up his son to be a little iconic and play into that realism with his life, which I think is pretty interesting and a nice change of pace. And we had a main event versus main event here. Christian Cage comes out cutting a promo. Edge comes out. Wayne goes after the knee before the bell rings, so you have him a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. Luchasaurus getting the upper hand. And then on the other show, Carmelo Hayes, Cena in his corner. Braun Breaker, Paul Heyman in his corner. Not too much of the match. You definitely think the body of the AEW main event was better. He hit an execution. They changed the name of that for some reason. 2 big boots at the same damn time, both men down. Spear off the steps. Christian Cage comes out, tries to interfere. Edge wouldn't let him. Edge ripped the TNT title from him, clocked Luchasaurus as Nick Wayne is distracting the ref unbeknownst to him for Edge. Edge puts the title back in Christian Cage's hands. Luchasaurus looks at him like, hey, what the fuck? Did you just hit me with this TNT championship? Because it sure as shit looks like you did. This whole scheme was set up by Edge. Boom, spear, 1, 2, 3. There's turmoil in the Christian Cage camp, and Edge gets the victory. Turmoil for not that long, though, because Nick Wayne goes after the knee again from Edge, and we had all hell break loose. The Blackpool Combat Club come to help Edge. Then you had Swerve come out to get revenge on Danielson from earlier on in the night. Hangman Page stops that from going on. This was very Nitro here. Everyone brawling as the show goes off the air. You gotta love that shit. But then the main event of NXT, Carmelo Hayes gets the victory here because Cena stops Braun Breaker from using the steps and chases off Solo Sikoa. So Carmelo Hayes wins. Braun Breaker attacks Carmelo Hayes after the match, but then the gong hits. American Badass graphics. The fucking Undertaker is in the Performance Center in the CWC, driving his motorcycle around, gets in the face of Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker's not having any of it. He's like, it's my time now, you old motherfucker. Undertaker definitely showing his age here. Looked very old. You just gotta say it here. If you're reviewing the show, it was cool to see him, but damn, did this motherfucker look old. But he didn't look old enough to not deliver a punch. Boom! Right to the kisser of Braun Breaker and a chokeslam. This is great. Usually this stuff is reserved for like a Raw anniversary, but here they're doing it on NXT, and I think that's better to do it with these NXT guys than these guys on Raw that you're trying to push. It's okay if the legends outshine the future. You just don't want the legends to outshine the present, if that makes any sense. And it looks like the legends here, John Cena and Undertaker, Paul Heyman, really put themselves into trying to showcase the next generation here. They did a great job, and I got to give the nod. The last 30 minutes has to go to NXT. So 90 minutes of the show AEW has got, but when we get to the main event, when we get to the spectacle, when we get to the headlining shit, WWE gets the victory. So I don't know. AEW won the night, but creating moments, as they say, you got to give it to WWE and Braun Breaker getting chokeslammed by The Undertaker, of all people, in 2023. I haven't been watching wrestling too much, but, watched New Japan, watched WWE Fastlane, watched Raw, watched NXT, watched AEW. I'm all caught up now. God damn, do I love pro wrestling. I love putting out this podcast. Thanks for listening. If you like this show, share it with a friend. Help me out. If you like it, share it with a friend who also likes it. Fly high, I'm out.